I remember that one from when I was an undergrad. A guy named Dick Berger, who is the foremost expert in strength training in the United States. If you ever want to look some of his stuff up, he's well written. He was a lousy lecturer, but he was pretty good. He said that the literature tells you that unless you work, how do you put that? If you're a trained athlete, unless you work at a minimum of 20 minutes at 60 to 70% of your max, that you won't get a training effect. Now that's not the average Joe Blow on campus. This is a trained athlete. You got to work minimum 20 minutes at 60 to 70% of max to get a training effect. Anything less than that, you just won't get it. It's just, so I've had that stuck in my head ever since, so I keep that involved. That's why the crux of our workout, the main part of our workout, even now, is 3 times 20. We get a lot of rest in between. The key to it, though, is not to go full pressure all the way. You can't. I mean, it's just impossible. But to try to do it well and do it at maybe 3/4 pressure. And how do you measure 3/4 pressure? I don't know. But basically, once you establish your AT levels and what they are, your measurement is, it's easier for you to figure out. I can tell you that most of your athletes right now, if you told them 3/4 pressure, when you measure it out and figure it out, they're probably working it closer to 90 and higher, because it's just especially the male athletes, it seems to be a real testosterone thing. The other number you don't want to forget, if you can help it, I should have put spouse's birthday, but my wife's birthday, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's important that I know what it is. Things that puzzle me. And once I hear some of these other things, toxins. Maybe our coxswain expert, Mr. Coburn over here, can tell me, why do coxswains insist on yelling? Screaming. I mean, just screaming at people in front of them. I had a guy, we're starting a piece the other week, and I said, okay, we're going to roll, and I just listened for a while, and here's, it was unintelligible, but it was loud. We finished the piece, and I said to the coxswain, I said, well, what was it you were saying? Why was this so excited? I said, well, it's great. Now, you yelled at that guy in front of you, and by the way, the guy in front of him, you ever see the jockeys at the Kentucky Derby with the masks for the mud splashing up? I should get some of those for some of our stroke men, because this kid was spitting the whole time. He was just going. Anyway, I said to him, what did he yell in the last 500? How the hell loud did he yell in the last 500 meters? He was going to go harder. You understand? It's like, I've now had to work really hard. You're high school coaches, so maybe you can get this started ahead of time. I have to work hard on getting them to have a conversation and talk in a conversational tone with the kids in the boat. They just want to scream. That's it. The other thing I was wondering about, and this is something that bothers me, why? And you're high school coaches, so maybe you know why they have to be rolling 36 to 38 strokes a minute on the second day of practice. I can always see the high schools coming up the river on the Schuylkill. You see the colleges, then you see water flying everywhere. You know it's a high school coming. It's the second day of practice. We were talking about patience. Tony was talking about being patient and going back to basics. Some of these guys are ripping it up like crazy at a really bad time. Why don't they make rubber boats for novices? Well, if not a rubber boat, how about a boat that has how about a duct tape valve? All my novice boats look that way anyway. Here's something that's interesting, and I think I know the answer. Am I eating into my question time? Huh?
That's all right, Coach. You're on a roll. This is good.
Why are scullers so miserable? All the time. On the scoop, I get cursed at regularly. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. And then I get calls up at the school about me. The coach out top has no respect. He's waking everybody up. I don't know. Now, this is something that Mr. Coburn, our coxswain expert, said. Why do you have? Here's the only other thing I want to know is, how come you have to explain everything all the time? If you leave a gap, a crack, you leave it, they'll find it. Typically, my coxswains have said, you just say I couldn't. We're doing a 3-mile piece from Boathouse Row up to the Twin Stones, and they get to the middle, right by the Three Angels, and I see this one coxswain going over this way. He's way out of line. He's going, screaming, like that one video I was trying to play for you. And he went so far to the East Shore, on the East to Kelly Drive, a crew coming downriver passed on this side, on the poor side. I told him on the way up, I said, follow in the other, we sent him off a single fox, follow the other crew's path. That way there's nothing unfair about it. You're in the same basic path. Well, he said, yeah, but you didn't say I couldn't, cut the... A lot of these questions are going to be answered in the...
How about questions? How about with this question for Coach?
I had all these notes and hours. Anybody wants to stop back later? Yes. Oh, we have a question?
I have a question. What was in that case with the bear put in the bottom of his lunch?
What case? I asked the bear one time. The bear used to change guys' report to starboard every 3 days. And I remember when I was a rower, I thought it was nuts, but when I was a coach, I said, Bear, why are you doing that? He says, this is what he said. He said, port, starboard. Simple. Then he said, don't ask me anything else either. I said, why? He says, because as soon as you tell somebody everything you know, they'll have your job. And I had his job 3 years later. Right?
And he says, you call me Irish or something. I said, you go back. Coach, I don't row starboard. What are you, goddamn specialist?
It's the truth. He put me on starboard 3 days before a race up in Poughkeepsie. I was scared to death. I said, I can't do this. He said, again, port, starboard. He'd say, if you go into a room full of coaches, and this is when we used to have Dad Vail meetings in Fairmount, he'd say, if you go into a room full of coaches, be quiet. You listen. And I think, okay, so I waited and I'd be quiet. I was being a good soldier. And I said, why? He said, because you can't learn if you're talking, but you can if you're listening. And that was the bear.